Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Chris Ferry, and of course, this is my co-host.
My name is Chris Huddleston.
And today we are both very excited to be talking to you about the Star Wars knockoff with some other stuff in the soup, Starcrash.
To the haunted stars, find the Khan's secret and destroy
Do you have a synopsis for us, Mr. Huddleston?
I have the greatest synopsis ever for this. I don't know if it's the greatest ever, but it's short and to the point. A space explorer and his girlfriend, I don't know if they established that or not, but try to protect Earth from devastation. And this is, as you said, it's 78. Well, they list Rotten Tomatoes lists 79. I've seen 78 and 79 for the release date, but this is an Italian production. So the director is Luigi Cozzi. I don't know if that's correct, my pronunciation. And it stars Marjoe Gortner, Caroline Munro, Christopher Plummer, and David Hasselhoff. So this one was you brought this up. So what did you think?
This one was crazy. It's one of these. I'm not going to say it's a unicorn because it's just not that entertaining. But, I'm going to lovingly tear it apart for all the reasons that it is shake your head, like scratch your head bad. But I will say there were moments in this that I thought were visually inventive. A lot of it is stolen from other stuff. And, it's very Star Wars, and like there's little models of ships and spaceships, and it starts with you're underneath the big spaceship.
Oh, just like Star Wars.
A lot that's lifted right from there, and the models look like cheap, build them at home kits. And then the effects are like your basic 70s. Somebody gets zapped, and then they're just sort of turn into a green silhouette and fade away. That being said, there were moments in this that I thought that's actually kind of cool. That's kind of a cool shot. the low bar effects did not ruin this movie for me. I think the hardest thing to get my head around was actually the script and the dialogue.
The dialogue is terrible.
There are some performers in this that don't even seem to understand what acting is. I mean, there's one dude that sort of says his lines like this. It's as though he's had a stroke and his face is unable to move. And you're like, what is happening? I'm glad we watched it. I was listening to the radio, and that we have a local radio station where, there's a self-professed nerd enthusiast, film enthusiast, and gaming enthusiast, and she mentioned Starcrash, and the other DJ was like, "Oh, never heard of it." And she was like, "Oh my God, you have to check it out." So I was like, "Starcrash, eh?" And I went and I looked it up and watched the trailer, and then immediately texted it to you because I'm like, we have to watch. I wasn't even aware of it. But yeah, it's all kinds of bad. Were we talking on after recording? No, you were telling me earlier that you were familiar with the female lead that she had.
So Caroline Munro she was somewhat of a 70s icon, particularly in horror. So the guy who is I don't know if he was the emperor, the guy with the cape, and the black hair. So they did several films together. Most notably, I've never seen it before, but they did this kind of notorious horror film called Maniac, which they remade maybe 10 years or so ago with Elijah Wood. The remake is really good. It's very gruesome. But the original I've never seen, but they did like 3 or 4 films together. And the funny thing is, she is English. And Christopher Plummer said that working on this film, that she had a very strong English accent. And they dubbed all of her lines with a different actor.
Well, that's very Italian, I guess.
Yeah, now Italian films notoriously or famously, they don't often record film or record audio on set, and even if it's the actors themselves doing, in post-production, dubbing their own lines, that's pretty common. So like David Hasselhoff is in this, and you can tell it's David Hasselhoff's voice. Whether they recorded that on set or they dubbed it, I don't know, but her voice was definitely dubbed. And it's one of these kind of interesting things where this is a PG film, and we've talked about other films. The thing that's interesting about this to me is it's clearly a Star Wars ripoff, but it feels like they were trying to make a good movie. This doesn't feel like, we're just doing a dumb campy thing. To me, I don't know how you felt about that, but you've got a PG film where the entire film is Caroline Munro in kind of like bondage costumes.
I call it a space bikini.
Yeah.
Like one that you have, like you wear in space.
The one you have behind you is almost like a vampire space bikini or something.
Yeah, great collars. Like she'll have, I mean, this is right out of Barbarella or Heavy Metal. It's like thigh-high boots, black leather bikini bottoms, a black leather bikini top that somehow has like an 8-inch vampire collar. And you're kind of like, I guess it's just space fashion for when none of the other, I guess I was going to say none of the other women dress like that, but the only other women we see are sort of Amazons, and they are all kind of dressed like that.
Yeah, for about 5 minutes or so.
In space, where women mostly go bare.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Caroline Munro is gorgeous. So from a, from that standpoint, it definitely helps the film. Running around in these outfits.
I was rolling my eyes. It doesn't hurt, but it didn't. It wasn't hard to watch her performance, and it's not just because she's, a scantily clad, good-looking woman. She does some wonderful, what I call eyebrow acting. Like she'd have a basic line like, we'll lose them in the next, past the next star or something. And then she would sort of pop her eyes in a way that made no sense to me, but I thought was captivating.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, she seemed so excited at odd times. Like, maybe we can get some lunch. And you'd be like, wow. I mean, I don't know. I guess you're really hungry. It didn't make sense. This movie doesn't make any sense.
I couldn't really tell you what the plot was.
I was actually enjoying it up until the end. It ends in a big sort of space battle, and that's the point at which I nodded off. Like,
Mhm.
I just literally fell asleep during the space battle because nothing. I mean, the plot grinds to a halt there. Well, ships shoot each other and explode, etc. It's not like Star Wars where there's a trench scene where the ships are trying to do something, and it's like, it's like watching a game of football where one team's trying to get the ball across the line. It's just a space battle of now these ships. I couldn't even tell which ships were which, and ships were blown. It just went on and on.
Well, and the kind of the people fighting each other, the actual humans. I didn't know who was who, in any of that.
No.
And it's funny. I did a little bit of reading about this, and the filmmakers claimed that they started working on this before Star Wars and weren't influenced by. There's just no way
Right.
this was not a ripoff of
They
Star
clearly
Wars.
put so much time into this one
Yeah.
that they took them, and then Star Wars snuck in under the wire. And, they stole our great ideas.
Mm-hmm. Now, the interesting thing is I checked the budget. The budget for this is listed in $78 or $77, $78 or $77 as $4 million, which comes out to about $20 million today. And they say by comparison, Star Wars was about $11 million, which is like $53 million today. So, I mean, a $4 million, but there are things about this that look pretty good. And I would say probably the strongest aspect of this, I'm going to have to look here real quick to check his name, but the composer is John Barry is his name. And he actually had he's no longer living, but he actually had a really good composing career. He did all of the James Bond movies from 63 to 87 and actually created the James Bond theme. He did Dances with Wolves, Chaplin, and also The Black Hole, which is a great, which I think is a great score.
Yeah,
and the
at
score
least
in
that
this is
title theme. I don't remember anything else from The Black Hole, but that title theme with the kind of thrilling, trill.
Mm-hmm. And this the score in this is pretty good. I mean, it's somewhat repetitive, but I felt that was the strongest aspect of this. And
it's very Star Wars. It's
yeah.
na da na 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 na. It's like,
and even at times it's kind of there was a period about when Christopher Plummer first appears in this film, and he appears as a hologram. It's this very kind of melancholic score where it kind of almost doesn't fit with the movie. And regarding Christopher Plummer, I read some quotes from him so they shot this in Rome, and Christopher Plummer said he only shot he's barely in this, but he only shot for 3 days, and he said, he didn't say like this movie was terrible or anything like that, but he said that he did this movie because they shot in Rome, and he said, he said, I would shoot a porn if they did it in Rome.
Rome, yeah.
And I don't know how much that happens today, but I've read this some with other actors where they specifically said, I took this part because they filmed it in the Bahamas or they filmed it in Paris or whatever. I knew it was a bad movie, but it was a vacation, and I would do that too,
Sure. I mean, Christopher Plummer is a classically trained. He's one of the great living actors, or unless he recently passed. Maybe we just lost him, but
yeah,
he's definitely getting there. It's not his performance that's a problem in this movie. It's the lines they give him to do. And
There's a lot in this of just, line. And I wonder if, they recorded some of this dialogue later and maybe it wasn't the script. I don't know. But it's a lot of just, hey, run for your life. Follow me. There's not a lot of real dialogue in this.
And a lot of people don't use contractions in space. Do not tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You will not catch my ship. It is the fastest ship in space. Stuff like that. And that's not verbatim, but it might as well be. Like, that's the kind of dialogue throughout this. And there's a robot that is sort of C-3PO and R2-D2 combined that looks a little bit like a Cylon, sort of vaguely. And he's got like some sort of a Oklahoma, or I thought it was even a West Virginian accent. It's
like a Southern drawl kind of.
Well, you're the nicest human I have ever met.
And that
made me consider you a friend.
And like you said, he's like C-3PO because he's scared of everything, but he's also this. I think literally they say he's a sheriff. He was my favorite character in the whole thing because he has all the funniest. I noted there was a really funny line. So they go to, so they find the Amazon women, and he says, and they're like on this beach, and you could see these women coming towards him, and he says, "Look, Amazon's on horseback. I hope they're friendly."
Yeah,
they weren't. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. They're not.
But yeah, he was the best. He had all the best lines in this because he was, I assume he was meant to be intentionally funny. He reminded me a lot of, he was C-3PO, but he also reminded, and this didn't come until later, but he reminded me of Bob in the Black Hole. Did that occur to you too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a big part of it was just that he's like, oh, well, was that Slim Pickens?
That was Slim Pickens. Yeah. But this was because that wasn't until like 79.
When what's going on with these the robots have these very specific. I guess it's not any than RP, speaking R2-D2 speaking. The C-3PO speaking with a British accent, but that didn't somehow take me out of it.
No,
when I was watching it as a kid. But so let me talk a little bit about. So the main one thing I really like about this is she's pretty much the main character.
Mm-hmm.
At first I thought, oh, she's sort of the Han Solo character, but really the movie most closely follows her,
Mm-hmm.
And then she's got this guy with a blonde fro, this curly head guy who's like, I guess in the synopsis sort of indicates that maybe he's her boyfriend, but they didn't seem like that to me. They just seemed like, especially by the end, that they were just best space friends.
Mm-hmm.
And he is kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's got like mind powers, and it's revealed that he can see the future. And
he has a lightsaber.
Well, yeah. Was he doing that with his mind, or did he have an actual device that was a sword? Because there's other times when he's like doing, cat's cradle things with his hands, and little like laser light stuff is happening between his hands, and he deflects. He does some pretty serious force stuff throughout this movie. And then by the end, when the last third of the movie, we see David Hasselhoff come in, and it feels like he's the romantic lead,
Well, they're holding hands at one. He's leading her through a cave.
Yeah, and there's never any on her part. She's kind of like, "Ooh, I kind of like this guy," and it's like, "Oh, what about my boyfriend on the ship?" But by the end, it's sort of like, "Oh no, they're just friends. They're just like space pirates together, and they get along great."
And David Hasselhoff, I've got to say, so I don't know how long before. I guess this was maybe. So Knight Rider, I want to say was probably like 82, 83, something like this. So this was a few years before he really became a breakout star with Knight Rider. But he's almost as pretty as what she is.
Yeah, yeah, he's really, really young in this. Really. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wish that we had somebody on here who like knew all the juicy details of this, because I'm sure there's a lot to talk about in terms of how this got made and where it fit in. And would you have it pulled up on the screen there? Who produced this? Was it Roger Corman?
Well, yeah, it was Roger Corman. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was, like I say, it was an Italian film. And then I'm just this is just my guess, is that Roger Corman probably bought it. Um, but I noticed at the very end, and I forget what the name was, but the director they used it was like Larry Drake or something like that. But it's Luigi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right or not, but Cozzi, Cozzi, who's the director. So I don't know if they just put an American, they used a fake American name to make it seem more Americanized. But yeah, it was a Roger Corman film. And I was thinking, I think one of the things that is a little bit of a knock on this movie is it's just competent enough to make it not, people talk all the time about, they'll see something, they'll say, oh, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. And it's not the worst movie you've ever seen. This to me is not as bad as like a trauma film. Again, this is like they were trying to make something good, I think.
Yeah,
but
this is better than Kill and Kill Again.
Oh yeah, much much better. Yeah, that's probably the worst movie that we've watched. But
I actually kind of even liked it more than Megaforce.
Yeah, it's better because Megaforce feels like they were trying to make a campy film, to me. But you texted me and said we should have done this as a drunk cast, and we should have. It would have been really good.
To your credit, you're like, well, why don't we just, how far into it? Let's start recording. But it was late for me, and I just didn't feel like starting it over and spinning up the camera and everything.
But this would be a great movie to, if I ever found out that this were playing in a theater near me, I would try to go and see it. Because if you saw this with an audience of people knowing what it is, that's the perfect way to watch this movie. That would be a lot of fun. Just watching it by yourself, it's kind of dull. But to see that, have some drinks and watch it, and if you were in a packed house with people who are fans of this or know what it is, it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that so much that I might even try and organize a screening of it up here. At that place, you remember the bar where we did the horror thing?
That would,
first got to
you
town?
Should do that. That would be
That'd be
amazing.
Great. And then we could have a panel conversation both before, well, maybe just before setting it up, and do a little homework so we can plant some, gin up some excitement, like things to look for. And if you're in the mood for playing a drinking game, you texted me some really good Starcrash drinking games.
Oh yeah, that you would just die if you did.
We just set it up and then sort of without further ado, and then let it rip, because it is.
If you got people in who had a lot of information about this, because I had heard of it and I knew that Caroline Munro was in it, and that was basically it. And I knew it was a Star Wars ripoff.
Yeah, it's I don't want to say I loved it, because that's not accurate, but I loved that it exists and that we watched it. And I would watch this one again. Some of the sort of stinkers that we watch, I'm like, I never need to see that movie again. But this one would be really fun to watch with other people.
Yeah, with some, even if, you and me and Travis or
absolutely
Jay Johnson, you could get involved. That would be a lot of fun. In that
situation, we could skip, like, you get to the boring space fight and you're just kind of like, okay, well, let's fast forward through this, because there's literally, the plot grinds to a halt where ships blow each other up. And but the stuff in this that I enjoyed, I actually really enjoyed. And the fact that the dialogue, it doesn't get mired, and except for the sort of fight sequences, the plot moves forward so rapidly. So they're space pirates. They get caught by these sort of space cops. They call them cops.
Mhm.
It's the cops. I'm like, okay. And then they get sentenced to like prison. It was space prison. They bust out of space prison.
They're in prison for 30 seconds.
Exactly 30 seconds. There's a scene where she's like, "This is crazy. We're not slaves." I'm like, what? Yeah, it's a penal colony. I mean, that's pretty much the idea here.
Mhm.
You're loading these like whatever dilithium crystals into this thing. And then there's a prison break where the guard like whacks her with a metal bat a couple of times, and then she karate chops him, and he falls over into one of the other, prisoners she's been talking with, who grabs his ray gun and blows a hole in him. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I was like, oh, that's actually dope, and then the woman who shot the guard gets shot, and it's this sort of slow-mo, very Italian feeling, like spaghetti western, where she's like, ah, the laser goes right through her. And
Mhm.
I just thought, it's on. I mean, this movie, it goes everywhere,
Mhm.
for a kid's movie. You're like, well, that's actually a pretty, so there's parts of it. I don't know if it's the second unit director. I don't, there are moments in this film that I think felt really inspired, really rose above
Yeah.
the movie as a whole. And,
Mhm.
and I just wondered, like, I don't know, I don't know how that happened. I don't, somebody was in charge of those scenes, and that person was either really trying to make a name for themselves or really bring their A game, or it was the director, but he had a real clear idea of what he wanted in those scenes, or I don't know. I want to like, why isn't the whole movie like? Because if the whole movie was like those handful of scenes, and there's some shots too that they're really simple. It's like the model ship in the foreground, and they have, you know, they've split the screen, and
Mhm.
then, it's her in the distance kind of climbing up, and it actually looks like, but it's a cheap camera trick, but the overall composition of the shot is really pretty cool.
Well, and there's some set design that is good in this too.
Yeah.
The at the very beginning of the movie, there's kind of this rotating. I don't know if they're in an elevator or something, but these guys are coming out, and I thought, this might be pretty good, but and then it just doesn't really come together.
Yeah.
But I would say it's this isn't as well done, but I enjoyed this more than Krull.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I agree.
Krull is, you know, has better production values, but Krull is just kind of boring.
Crawl is interesting enough that you really want to like it more than you
Yeah.
ever end up liking it. You watch
Yeah.
Crawl and you go, oh, I was so excited to see this, and it's just a snoozer, you know.
Mhm.
But this wasn't
And
exactly a snoozer. It was like a head
no, no.
scratcher the whole time. I was scratching my head, being like, what? You
And
know?
the thing is, I'm sure I've said this dozens of times on our podcast, but the original Star Wars is kind of a miracle that you just had all these really talented people that got together, because Star Wars could have been this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty fine line, I think, between just because you never really had anything before Star Wars that was like Star Wars. I mean, probably the closest thing was Planet of the Apes, really. But, you have stuff like Forbidden Planet and those kind of things
Right.
before Star Wars. And you didn't really have anything like Star Wars until a long time after, because there were a lot of things like this and Crawl and those kind of movies that tried to do it, and it just didn't work.
Right.
And it probably wasn't until something like Guardians of the Galaxy that they really were able to, kind of capture that sort of Star Wars feel. So
Yeah.
it's really, really hard to do something like this, I think.
Right.
And this was this was just an Italian cash grab, but it, a little bit, if things would have just come together a little bit more, this could have been a really good film, I think.
Well, I think if they had twice the budget and Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of ifs. I think if somebody stepped in at the production level, executive production level, is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we're going to put everything on hold before you start shooting. We're going to take another month. We're going to get a couple of professional screenwriters here to take a pass at this. Cause I think, you've got it in Italian, you've translated to English using English 101 book or something. That's why the characters are like, your shoe, it is untied. And the other one's like, thank you for telling me this. That's important to know.
Yeah.
What? You fix that. That's easy. You just need an English speaker to be like, hey, people don't talk like this. Why don't you just say, if she's in English, just let her be like, could I just say it like this? And then you say, yeah, that's better.
It would be interesting to see this with her original delivery.
Yeah. I mean, the camera loves her.
Yeah.
I want to look up some of her other work. But yeah, I mean, I'm delighted, and I'm serious. I think I want to organize a screening of it here. I think that would be a hoot.
Yeah, that would be so much fun.
The winter gets so snowy up here, and people are itching for an excuse to get out. Maybe I'll pick a winter weekend and see.
And this is enough of a cult film that I think, especially where you are, that people are really into film.
Yeah,
you could definitely get people who would be into seeing this.
Well,
now
that
would be the absolute perfect way to watch this.
I'm going to reach out to the DJ that I heard talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if she wants to come and sort of help set it up. Like, you're welcome to stay if you want, but if you would just come and set up the movie and talk a little bit about it with me and why it's great, and then we'll roll it.
That would be so much fun.
And whatever date you're available to do, we'll make it happen. And because I think this is one of, we had somebody post when we did the Flash Gordon thing. We had somebody post who was clearly an enthusiast and knew a lot about what went into the making of Flash Gordon, and wrote us a lengthy feedback about everything we had misunderstood about it or didn't know about it. And I'll repeat it again here, if you haven't figured it out. We're not professional film critics, and we aren't film studies majors. We're just guys that like to talk about movies, particularly those from the era when we were kids. But I think
let me stop you there for just 1 second. That was something that I kept thinking about during this. If we had seen this when we were 6 years old or whatever we would have been, we would have loved this movie.
I think so. Yeah, I think I would have. I think I'd have fallen in love with her for sure.
Yeah, you would have been like, oh, you're 6 years old, but like, I feel something about this.
If I was an attractive woman, I would say that this is a great Halloween costume. Like, any one of her wardrobe changes every single scene she's in, but they're all variations on this kind of space bikini.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great deep cut, because people are like, what are you, some kind of vampire? And you're like, no, it's me from Starcrash.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somebody somewhere has done that.
Oh,
at a con or something.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, anything else? That kind of covers it.
I mean, as far as recommendations, I would say, get some friends together and watch this. If you, because it's just not that much fun to watch alone. Get some friends together and watch this, even if you do it remotely. Or if, a theater near you, for whatever reason, happens to, or a festival or something like that happens to play this, by all means go, because it would be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. I cannot believe that I did not know this movie existed. That's how much I liked it.
Yeah.
I just can't believe. I'm like, how did I not know about this film? I mean, yes, it's terrible, right? I'm not saying it's not a unicorn like The Room. It's not one of these ones that would be an instant cult classic, but
I've seen it compared to The Room in terms of being a great bad movie.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably the best. We brought up Kill and Kill Again. We brought up
Megaforce.
I mean, this isn't as good as as Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon is a better film. Are there some other really bad ones that we've done? I don't, but I'm just going to say this is the best. It's Zardoz is more artsy.
Yeah.
But this is more fun than Zardoz. So I think this is probably the best bad movie we've done.
And this one, you mentioned Zardoz. There is definite homage in this to Zardoz, I mean, I guess Flash Gordon came later. So, but
Flash Gordon was 1980. So yeah.
But there's a lot in this that feels familiar to other movies. There's a dash of Barbarella to it, certainly in her outfit.
Can I stop you for just 1 second about Barbarella? Because sure. I don't know, did I text you about this? They are remaking Barbarella.
You texted me this, yeah.
And I don't know how you do Barbarella in 2022, unless you just say, the hell with it. We don't care about, being politically correct. I don't know how you do a sanitized Barbarella.
Or why? Why?
Yeah, what's the point?
Why do you do Barbarella?
Other than just people have heard of Barbarella before. But I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But my guess it's going to be PG-13 and all the sexploitation aspects of it. It's one of the actresses from Euphoria, Euphoria is a great show. And, she's a good actor. She's executive producing this, but unless they just go for it and say, hey, this is going to be a sexploitation thing, I don't see what the point is.
If she's executive producing it, I bet she was part of the conception. I bet she was like, you know what I really want to do? I've got a fresh take on Barbarella. And studios were like, we're listening, and she pitched it and they're like, hey, that could work.
But you can't do Barbarella as a tentpole film. It's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be a Marvel movie, If they do it, if they make it weird and psychedelic and, she's just hooking up with other space people,
I'm open to watching anything if it's good.
Yeah. I'm not against.
I want to remake Rocky and I'll be skeptical, but if you remake Rocky and it's great, I'll be like, hey, that was great.
Yeah, I'm not against remakes just as a concept, but there's some things that I don't know if it works in 2022.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I do think, I think that this one of the bad movies that we have watched, this is among the most entertaining. And that's not to say it's a roller coaster ride of thrills, and but it is delightful to watch them speak to each other because what is happening? That never really fades. And then Christopher Plummer shows up and he's like, you must navigate into the haunted stars and the Emperor Zarzazors. I mean, he's got some kind of, and the emperor, the evil emperor's design is crazy. He's got like his hair is slicked down and parted, but then he's got these sort of little, it flips out at the bottom. He's got a big cape and
Dracula cape. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and he has two guardians or protectors, he calls them, and they're, it's a cheap Harryhausen knockoff of like stop motion. There's a couple of parts in this where they
we didn't even talk about the stop motion. There's some really bad stop motion in this.
Yeah, there really is. It's really,
we've talked about it before, but we have to do the original Clash of the Titans sometime. I haven't seen that in a long time.
I watched that not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
Well, okay. I mean, it's been a couple of years, but yeah, we should watch that. For no other reason than the Harryhausen stuff, but there's a lot of other great stuff in that movie too.
I bet I haven't seen it since the 80s.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
We could do that soon if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a good one. It oddly, it drags a little from place to place, but there's so much. The Kraken, Medusa.
That was one of those HBO movies that I watched over and over as a kid and just adored.
Yeah. I think it's a classic.
So do you, after all that, do you recommend this?
I do, with the usual asterisk that's like, I'm not saying you're going to think this is a great movie, but if, like us, you kind of dig these, like, how did this get made? I think there's a lot of surprises in it. And it kept me scratching my head in what felt like a delighted way. And I didn't get bored with it until the very end, when they're like, now for the climax, and they just quit trying to have anything move forward. But that's right at the end of the movie. There's a scene in which she gets frozen and the robot somehow figures out a way to like keep her alive while she's frozen.
That was almost touching, where they're like,
it was almost touching.
Yeah.
So this movie is like almost really good and almost really interesting a lot of times. And that was enough for me to be like, I'm really glad we watched this. So I would recommend it, with all those caveats, being like, look, it's not Blade Runner 2049.
No.
It's a Star Wars knockoff that you've never heard of, but it's really puzzling.
Well, and that's the thing. We should sprinkle in more Italian stuff here and there,
probably,
because Italian movies don't make any sense. I don't know what it is about Italian filmmakers, but and there's some great Italian films that are very much style over substance, where they look great, but they don't make any sense at all. One movie that I did think of that is probably the best bad movie that we've done, which was the very first episode that we did, was The Wraith.
Oh yes.
Wraith is maybe the best bad movie ever made.
Yes. Yes.
So this is not The Wraith, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Cool. Chris and Chris Talk Movies at gmail.com. That's our handle. We're on the socials. You can like and subscribe. That's good. Leave us a message. Give us your thoughts and feedback. If you've seen this movie and you know something about it we missed, let us know. Because
if you're an expert on Starcrash, please tell us. And you can tell us that they were trying to do this and we missed all the
all the best juicy bits, because I would like to be educated on this movie some more. Do you want to do Clash of the Titans for next time? Do you have something lined up?
We talked about The Fog. I would really like to do The Fog because it's very much a Halloween.
Okay.
The fall time, and it's one that I really want to get your thoughts on.
Okay.
Because I think you'd enjoy it. But we could do that next.
Sure, or we could say that. If you want to, we don't have to commit to it, but we'll do The Fog for next time. Watch that with us, and please tune back in on your podcast or YouTube or however you're catching us, and join us for that conversation as well. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. No.
All right, you guys, you got to check out Starcrash. It's
definitely watch it. And it's on. I watched it on. I don't know where did you watch it on Prime?
Yeah, but
I watched it on Tubi. You can watch it on Tubi for free with some ads.
Yeah, the ads I thought were irritating, but I didn't see any option to rent it without ads anywhere. So,
and it's a good print too. It looks good.
Yeah,
it's not grainy or anything like that.
No, I couldn't believe that I had never heard of this movie. Could not believe it, because it's definitely good enough in bad ways for that. I'm like, how have I not heard of this movie until now? But I'm glad I know about it now. All right. So we will talk to you about The Fog next week.